Welcome to the Old Mac Gang Podcast, or OMG, a podcast with a panel of longtime Mac Apple users who want to discuss the most relevant apps and services to age-seasoned users. I'm Marty Gensius, an Apple enthusiast and podcaster. I'm a 67-year-old age-seasoned user who has collected a great group of friends to talk about Apple and the products and things that we use as age-seasoned citizens. Let's see who we have on our panel today. Gary, you're muted.
I'm Gary. I'm 87. I live in the Cleveland area along with Peter and Marty. I have primarily a Mac Mini, which is my major computer that I use every day, along with a phone and a watch.
Oh,
sure. I'm Peter. I'm 72, and I live in Bay Village, Ohio, close to Gary and Marty. I use a bevy of Apple products and services, including an M4 MacBook Pro, an M4 iPad Pro, an iPhone 16 Pro Max, and a Series 9 Apple Watch. I use all of these daily to make life easier and to pursue a variety of interests, such as hiking, watching films, enjoying music, playing, and exploring math.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm still 77 for another month, and I'm retired and living in Tucson now for almost 8 years, and a happy member of the Tucson Mac User Group, which you'll hear more about in a minute. And I've been around the Mac since 1984. Was fortunate enough to work at Apple for a while, did some university IT support, and now I'm retired and a very happy Apple user with an M1 Mac Mini, Pro Max 16 iPhone, Apple Watch Series 6, and a 9th generation iPad.
Hello. My name is Bob Wood. I'm also in Tucson. I've been a Mac user since the Mac Classic and the Style Writer 1, and I've been a member of Mac user groups since just about that time, and have been an officer in a couple of states. After they chased me out of Wisconsin, I went to Arizona and joined the Tucson Mac user group. Marty?
Well, I can tell you this is a happy day for me because 3 important things happened. The Cubs won, the Cardinals lost, and I finished my teaching for the week. So I can sit back and relax for all the stuff I have to do for the rest of the week. It's good to be here tonight and good to be here with you talking today about the Apple Watch. And we'll get to some of the important parts of the Apple Watch and how you might use it, and some links for that later on in the show. Any news that people want to share? Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, I wanted to mention I was interested to see that Sam Altman and Johnny Ive got together for an announcement. Apparently, there's a company called I.O. that is going to be formed by Love From, Johnny's design consultancy firm, selling all of its hardware designs to OpenAI, the ChatGPT people, for a whopping sum of $6.5 billion. It needs regulatory approval, but apparently there is some kind of new hardware, I've designed hardware, coming out next year.
Well, the most important question is, will it have rounded edges or will it have square edges on it? That's what's important. And will whatever it is go all the way to the end so there's no bezel? $6.5 billion. Wow. That's not monopoly money. Not. I'm curious to see what it is. I really am curious to see what this mashup is going to bring. And it's the company is simply called I.O. From what
yeah,
you
I mean, the dollar sum may be also associated with some consultancy that Love From is going to be doing for OpenAI, which includes design of ChatGPT in a lot of their software.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to follow up on that because I'm always very curious about what's happening with AI and whatever product they're thinking of launching. I want to find out when they put a website up. I want to find out the website and I want to poke around with that. Um, so let's talk a little bit about Apple Watch Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention last week, or did have a little bit in the past, but we're in that sort of vacuous lead up to WWDC right now. So there's all sorts of speculation. They're even talking about iPhones in the year after next and who knows what, right? But one of the things that a lot of photographers are interested in, particularly cell phone photographers, is what Apple is going to do with Photometer and Pixelmator. They acquired a company, I think in Lithuania, last year called Pixelmator. And I don't know much about that product. It's more in line with a little bit of Photoshop and a little bit of Adobe Illustrator. The one that interests me is Photometer because it's like a new and improved version of Apple Photos. And I actually went back this week to go over some old photos because of a friend had passed on, and so we wanted to put together some old photos and send them along. And I was really surprised how well Photometer did. And I couldn't remember which iPhone it was, and I looked it up, and it was my iPhone 6S that I had taken these pictures with. And I was really impressed with the job that Photometer did. So we're looking forward to hearing what's Apple going to do. Are they going to combine Apple Photos and Photometer, or are they going to be peer products for another year before they sort of merge together? Unknown. So there are a lot of people looking forward to hearing what Apple's going to do on that front.
Yeah, I know Pixelmator is a Lithuanian company because being Lithuanian, and there's so few of us around. Anytime we hear anything that's associated with Lithuania, we claim it as our own. So, yeah, I knew that Pixelmator was a Lithuanian company. I'm excited about the possibility too, and I'm not necessarily a visual guy, but I've always felt like iPhotos or photos was underrepresented of what it could have been. And everybody was kind of outsourcing all their photo editing to other products in order for it to work. So the fact that they might build that in and Apple will improve the quality and level of what can be done with photos by incorporating aspects of the companies that they purchased into the photo product. I don't expect it to be to be full line. If I'm a photographer, I'm still going to want to buy some of those individual products to work with photos. But for a guy who shoots an occasional picture and really wants to have more tools to clean it up with that are put together in an intuitive fashion, it would be nice to see them incorporate some of that into the work for their product, Apple into their product. So I'll be watching that even though I'm not a photo guy. And it'll be interesting to see with WWDC if there's any explanation or demonstration of those qualities being infused into photo on their Mac OS. So, well, today we're talking about Apple Watch, and in particular, I wanted you to think about from a senior's point of view, what are the qualities in Apple Watch? Now, Apple Watch is touted a lot for health, but it's also touted a lot for fitness. Like it has all sorts of fitness options on it, sports and types of fitness that I will never do, just because of my age and because of my physicality at this point. So it feels to me when they go and delve deep into that, it's like I really don't want to know what my what each lap is and what my lap time is when I'm running because I'm not running. So as they build in that sports quality piece, I feel left behind. But they've incorporated so many good health aspects that when I see people our age wearing a watch, I think it's generally, well, except for the ones that are really looking young and attractive and spry and pumping iron or whatever, but those few our age who do that, um, I'm assuming they've got it on there not just to tell the time, but there's some health aspects and some other things that the watch does that serves our generation a little bit better. So um, let's start. My first question for the group is I'm assuming you have an Apple Watch. What's your favorite use for the Apple Watch? Gary?
Well, my first one was to tell the time. I like to know what time it is usually. But then when I thought a little more about it, I really primarily use it to find my iPhone, which I misplace. And if I had it, and when I buy an upgrade, I'm using a 14. I bought a blue case, and if I had it to do over again, I'd buy a yellow or a red case. So that's that's really what I use it for. I'm like you, Marty, with the health, with the sports, the fitness apps. I know it has the walking, and I used to wear my normal watch, not the Ultra that I have now to sleep, and used it. But now I don't really sleep with the watch. So I primarily use it to find my iPhone. Okay, Chris.
I started
Yeah.
sleeping with my watch again a couple of weeks ago because I needed to get some record of what's going on with my heart at night because I had some heart issues. And so I never really liked to sleep with my watch, just like, Gary had just mentioned. But I went back to it for a short period of time just to see if some problems still registered that I was having. I'm sorry, Chris, I interrupted you. Let's go to you.
No worries. Yeah, I'd say probably number one is timers. I use timers all the time, and I did have a hospital stay. It turned out just fine. About a year ago, and I noticed that the nurses that were all had Apple Watches on, and they said timers number one. They said they couldn't work without it because they're constantly using timers. Probably secondly, I would say Apple Maps because of the blinker function. Very helpful in terms of where the actual turn is in case it's not easy to tell from the display. And definitely the health apps, sleep tracking, meds, all of that. I also use alarms a lot. And to a lesser extent, camera remotes, hearing aid settings, and Shazam to recognize music. And another one I see Bob's going to talk about this in a minute, but is NFC payments. Basically, I pay for everything with my Apple Watch. It's so much easier than getting my wallet out of my pocket.
Peter?
Yeah, I agree with using it as a watch. I mean, I always have worn a watch, but I would call the category that is my favorite use is glanceable information. It's all stuff that I could do on my phone, but it's all stuff and my phone is almost always in my pocket, so I don't need to go find it. But it's something I don't want to spend the time pulling it out of my pocket and looking at it. So if I look at my watch face, which I'm doing now, of course, I can see the time big. The complications I have on my standard watch face are calendar, which my calendar is fantastical. It'll show what the date is, which I'm interested in. And if I tap on it, I can just scroll through all of my whatever I have upcoming today, and it focuses on the next one. Then I have weather, and it shows me the current temperature and the high and the low for the day, which is generally enough. But if I tap on that, I see a big ring that shows me for the next 12 hours what the temperature is going to be, and a few other things I can find out by keeping on tapping, although I generally just tap once because it'll show the percentage chance of precipitation right now and for the next 12 hours. And I generally don't dig in any deeper than that. And then the other two complications I have in the other corners, I have one for timers, which have been mentioned, and then one for an app called Drafts, which is where I put any notes that I put in my phone or computer or anything. The first place it goes is Drafts. And if I tap on that and the microphone, I just talk and it takes my dictation, throws it in a note that I can deal with later. And those are my favorite uses of my Apple Watch.
Good.
Well, like my compatriots, a lot of my most important uses are the same. The health app, sleep tracking, workouts, NFC payments, and oxygen levels. Now, I do workouts, but I don't do, running and jogging and yoga and this and that and the other. I mostly end up doing chores around the house and calling it a workout. And those things are important to me, and I think it has helped me lose a bunch of weight. Over the past couple of years, I've lost 80 to 90 pounds. Marty?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you've already mentioned that the group has mentioned that as a reminder, but for me, of things that I use it for, like I've started using it for Shazam. I'm in a restaurant, I'm listening to something in the background, that sounds interesting. It used to be I'd pull my phone out, and when I pull my phone out, I would try to find the Shazam app, and by the time I got the Shazam app all set up to go, and listen, either some other noise occurred and there wasn't enough of the song for Shazam to figure it out, or the song had ended. So I'm now using it much more quickly through my watch to be able to link it through the watch. I have a Ultra 2, so I do have O2 levels that I can register on that. But I'm using my 10 more than that, which doesn't have the capability of doing O2 levels with it. When I first asked this question of myself, I thought the thing that I use it for the most is timers. And it's generally cooking. And when I'm cooking, I am doing something downstairs, then I'm coming up to work for 10 minutes. And I have to remind myself, because I'll get lost in work, that I need to be back down there to do something in 10 minutes. So I will use the timer as that kind of reminder on my wrist. The other reason and the other purpose for timers for me is when I travel, I generally take early morning flights. I prefer early morning flights. And I have a fear that I'm going to oversleep my flight. So I can put the alarm on my phone, but I'll also put a separate timer on my watch. So I'll have kind of staggered timers to wake me up if I wasn't awake already, because most of the night before I have to take off, I'm so worried about oversleeping that I don't get any good sleep anyways, whether I have timers set or not. But I do use it as a backup alarm for when I'm traveling, so I have that on my wrist. And the haptic helps with that. Sometimes I don't hear the alarm, but I feel the alarm on my wrist, and that wakes me up. So those are kind of the two places where I use it the most. So I have put some websites up for around some tips, and well, this in particular, how to set timers on the Apple Watch. So there'll be a link in the show notes if you want to know how to set timers on your Apple Watch, how to pause and end a timer, and how to create custom timers, which is what I'm often doing because the default timers are like 10, 20, 30, an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. And sometimes my sleep, I want something in between that. So, and ways to create multiple timers. So all of this will be, the links will be in the show notes. So you can either get them from the video cast show notes on YouTube, or you can get them from within the podcast notes of the podcast. So question number 2, what do you think the best use for seniors are in having a watch? And we start with Gary again.
Well, I think the best use for me is the emergency function. Not that I've had to use it, except once or twice when I fell, it asked me if I was okay. But that's one, and the other one would be the fine. Well, no, that would just the emergency one. I was thinking about, because I'd mentioned the tip before in my tip, Marty, about Find My, but I'll move on. All right, Chris.
All right.
Yeah, I would say probably hands down, I would recommend the health app number 1 for anybody who's not using it. And there's a wealth of stuff in there, and it's really worth taking a look at. And alerts on things like sleep apnea are really important. Timers, of course, we've already talked about. I remember the day Apple allowed us to do more than one timer at once. And that was a red letter day because I immediately started using 2 or 3 timers at once sometimes. And let's see, and the Apple Maps and the blinker function I mentioned. The last would be alarms. And one of the things I really like about alarms is I've got, I don't know, about half a dozen of them set up for different times during the night that I've needed to get up before. And it can be very helpful. I've had a couple of my joints replaced, and after those surgeries, I would have to wake up at different points during the night for medications because they didn't all come together neatly at one time. And that was very helpful for that. So all those alarms are still in there. I just turn them on and off. And like Marty is saying, the haptic will really wake you up, and it's very much more helpful to me than an alarm clock because I don't have my hearing aids in at night. So I might not hear the alarm anyway.
Yeah, I think health in general is what is a reason to have it. It may not be the thing I use it the most for, time wise, but I'm interested in my heart. So my heart rate, the analysis of heart rates, the recovery and cool down after I've done some exercise of some sort, whether it's a walk or mowing the lawn or anything else, and the weekly Afib burden are things I value. And I think exercise really falls under health. I mean, I want to fill my rings every day, so a pedometer, stairs. I want to have quality sleep, sleep apnea, sleep quality is an interesting thing to look at. And I think having the fall detection and notifications is a great safety thing. And I would also count as a safety feature the fact that, I have a cellular watch, so it's an always there cell phone. If I get in some accident and my cell phone flies away somewhere, I've got the watch attached to my wrist and I can make a phone call if it doesn't do one for me already.
Well, we certainly seem to be reaching a conclusion that health is the number one thing for us old folks. It certainly is for me. Fall detection, um, and the ability to call 911 if you can't. These are all very important things to everyone, but probably more important for seniors. Marty?
Yeah, one of the things that I think there are a lot of things that seniors can use this for. Peter had mentioned he has a cellular version of the watch, so he can make a phone call. My spouse walks the dog, and she does it a couple of times a day. And when she has a watch, when she's bought watches or we've gotten her watches, it's always been a cellular one. And the reason being is because she doesn't carry her phone with her typically when she's walking the dog. There's just too much stuff. So I know if she gets in trouble or if the dog gets away or she has a fall, she can always call me directly from her watch. And so that's kind of a safety and security function that I really like about it. I don't use that as much because I'm always got my phone with me, and I also have my watch, which is a cellular. Both of them are cellular, so they will work in both ways. What I put down was, again, health related. It was AFib and also blood glucose. And I had an experience about 2 weeks ago where my Apple Watch was telling me that I had irregular heart rate. And I ignored it for a while and then started looking at the data that was coming from it. The next day, I wound up going to my doctor, and he looked at what had come off my Apple Watch and said, "Yeah, you had AFib incident." So I guess I'm now officially diagnosed as having had AFib. Um, Peter, I'm curious, when you talk about the weekly AFib burden, because when I go to the heart section, it will register irregular heart rates, but it says you can go into a section where it says, "Do you have AFib?"
Right.
And this time I checked yes. And it said,
Right.
"Okay, well, you're not going to get regular information, but we will give you a summary every week." And so what does that mean? They're going to continue, it will be a
That means
continual
every Monday
assessment?
morning, sometime on Monday morning, you'll get a report and it will say your burden for the week is this amount.
Oh, okay.
And mine, since I have dealt with AFib, since I dealt with it by having a procedure, has been 2% or less. I mean, it's been zero. If I look at the strip charts I can pull out of it, I'm not having any incident. I might have an atrial flutter, which is something that would last less than 3 seconds. So I
Yeah.
might see, I'm at 60, and then there's one dot that pops up and it's 80. I mean, obviously, I mean, it might have been, somebody, I was watching a TV show and there was a jump scare in it or something. And it
Yeah.
might be that I'm having a bad dream. I mean, there are other things that could cause it, but generally I don't get but maybe one of those every couple 3 days. And like you, I wore a more aggressive monitor for a couple weeks, and
Hmm.
I could correlate what I was seeing on the watch strip charts to the more detailed report of that thing that was glued to my
Yeah.
chest and recording onto a chip. And I can decode those pretty easily now. And if you're a geek, you can pull the raw data out and look at it even more, in a more granular way than you see on the little strip charts you get in the health app or on your watch face.
Will I stop? And something about that when I was, because in the past, it's like if you're not diagnosed with AFib, you shouldn't click
Right.
this. And I went ahead and clicked it this time because I had an experience with AFib. But does it also then stop the regular? If my heart rate starts to shift, I'm not going to find out about it till next Monday.
No, I believe there are some things that will still give you as an alarm.
Hmm.
Okay, so there are some waveforms that indicate AFib, but there are also things like tachycardia, sudden changes in rate, jumping all
Yeah.
over the place that would that would probably trigger a separate
Okay.
alarm. That's my belief, but I will check it out and correct it next week if it needs to be corrected. I will double check my research on that.
Well, I'll see what shows up on Monday and next Monday, and I might switch it off because I kind of, if it does impact that, then I would like to be able to know when it's happening instead of waiting till next Monday, the
Right.
following Monday to find out about it. I also kind of use it for blood glucose, and the watch does not have a blood glucose detector yet. They've been playing with that technology. I'm waiting for the day when it happens. But if you're using other devices, I use a Libre 2, and I know there are Dexcom and there are other kinds of devices, those things that you stamp into your body for 2 weeks. and it records your glucose. The app will also connect with your watch. So if you go into high or low glucose levels, it will trigger your watch to let you know. I mean, it also triggers the phone, but if the phone's in your pocket, it's just an extra way of seeing what's going on with blood glucose. But it still requires an external device prescribed by your doctor in order for you to be able to have those kinds of readings and such. So let's move on to tips. And Gary, you've got the first tip.
My first tip was find my. But now that I put that down, Marty, I mostly use it from my phone and not my watch. I've learned a lot tonight from everyone. I'm sure viewers have too. So I guess the question would be, Find My, it's not on the watch, but only on the phone.
I don't know.
Any,
Anybody have any answers to that?
Well,
I believe
have a
Find My
for
from your phone can find your watch, but nothing else.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
as a
So it's
device, as a
as a
device.
device.
Or
And it's,
vice versa.
yeah. And my wife is I don't separate myself from my phone. So I carry it from room to room with me, and Aileen will put her phone down and then try to find it, and she'll
Yeah,
use her watch to find it, or vice versa, use the phone to find her watch.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, how you carry it, Marty, but I've started like to wear a vest or something without putting it in my side pocket where I have the phone with me all the time also. My problem is I put it down and I don't quite remember where I put it because I'm into something else. Where
Yeah.
then, as I said, I use my watch to find it, but I try to keep my phone with me all the time.
Yeah. The question of how I keep my phone with me all the time should first be answered by, am I wearing pants? Be- because if I'm wearing pants, it goes in my pocket. If I'm not, it's being carried in my hand. But
Yeah.
that's another story.
I,
Chris, yep. Chris, you've got
Yeah,
the next tip.
we do have find devices. These are apps I'm reading off my watch. Find items, find near me, and find people. So these are listed in the apps on the watch. So folks could take a look at that and see if that solves what they need. I know my hearing aids app has a Find My built into it in case I need to locate them, which is very handy. But in any event, moving on, my tip for tonight is pretty much aimed at folks who haven't yet dove into the whole new world of the control strip on the iPhone. And this is a place of just magic, really, for quick connects on stuff. What sort of set me on this path was, quickly connecting to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, going in and out of airplane mode if you need to do that. So this is something that probably, if you're really not familiar with the control strip, that's a whole another conversation, but you could start by just figuring out how the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth work, and you'll start finding other things while you're there. And the control strip is wonderful. You can add to it. You can have all sorts of shortcuts that will be very helpful. And for one thing, I have my hearing aids announce notifications. And this is very handy during the day, but it can get annoying. Like right now, I probably don't need my phone, which probably is not going to happen because it's being used as a continuity camera. However, there are times during meetings and stuff where I can quickly turn that off, and there's a widget in the control strip to turn that function off, and lots of other quick things on and off. So sort of a wide-ranging tip in terms of the control strip, but specifically in terms of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
Yeah, and we also have a link that you put in from iPhone Life that will explain how to use that, how to connect with that. Again, the links in the show notes of the video or the podcast. Peter, you're up next.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. Widgets are the best, and on my watch, the widgets make their appearance in the Smart Stack. So when I scroll the screen from the bottom to the top with my finger or scroll on the crown, I go into the Smart Stack, which has the most. There's a little artificial intelligence trying to place the most useful widgets first, unless I pin some that I always want to be near the top. And I put a couple of links in the show notes. One's a 2-minute video showing how it works, and another's a page from the Apple support showing how you mess around with it. But I find it super useful for the things that aren't in my normal watch face complications. And occasionally I try to be very suave by having different Apple Watch faces. And some of them don't have complications, and then I can see the things that would be in my complications in the Smart Stack.
Bob?
Well, I think that my tip is to get a portable charger for your Apple Watch. I put a link in the show notes for one. I have one here that video people can see. I guess not, because we're showing that one now. That people can see, and I've had it for several years. I had it for so long they no longer have it on Amazon. So the link I put in the show notes is for another one, and I think it's very important to have that because we are using our watches so much and so often that you may well need to give it a little charge. And with a portable one, you can have it in the car, and while you're going to and fro someplace, you can give it a little charge the easy way, just by having this with you. The other thing I wanted to mention is, like Marty, if I'm wearing pants, my phone is with me, and I have a holster on my belt that I keep the phone in as a regular thing, and you can find some of those on Amazon. I got mine at an art fair from a leather worker who made portfolios and key fobs and wallets and so forth, and he had a bunch of them, and you'd give him your phone, and he would take one of his blanks and kind of fold it over that and make it just the right size for your phone. And so I have that on my belt all the time. Of course, this does mean I have to have pants that have belt loops and a belt, but I think that that's always with me. Marty?
Yeah, I kind of went the quick route with this one, and I wanted to stick within the Apple Watch discussion that we're having tonight. But before we do that, one of the things that I'm real aware of is what's on my watch, and we Peter kind of discussed that, and I use what is the modular watch face, which allows me to put a bunch of information on my watch. So typically I have the weather in terms of what's the temperature, and I can hit on that, and it opens up for more detailed weather. I also have email link if I want to catch up on email, and then a message link on there. And then in the middle of the watch, what I have is what's on my schedule next. And at the top, I have the time, which is what you wear a watch for, and the date. And over in one column, the probably most used app on my watch is an app called Supercards. And what Supercards is a app that you put on your phone, but then you have the corresponding thing on your watch, and it collects all of those store cards that you have, and it puts the QR code or the code that you would normally scan with that pocket or wallet full of cards, but you can open it up and then once you've loaded all this stuff in, you just select the one you want to go to, and whatever store you're in, and then you just hold your watch up and scan it, and you're not pulling out cards, you're not dealing with keychains. And I've used that as when I first found it. It's like I can't go to the store without it. Otherwise, I'm giving them my phone number. But my suggestion is a PC Magazine article, 30 essential tips for every Apple Watch that every Apple Watch owner should know. And so if you want to discover all the different things that you can do with your Apple Watch, and maybe add more value to it through that way, it tells you how you can listen to music, how you can listen to podcasts, how you can track your workouts, measure your workouts and training load. That's not going to happen with me. Monitor your heart rate, which is essential function for a lot of us. You can even take an ECG with it, which is also important. And then with some models, still the blood oxygen level. So here are 30 things. So if you go through the article, you'll get a good idea of all the things that your watch could do that you probably forgot about. And so it will act as a good reminder for that. So those are our tips. And last thing, I guess, is anything else that folks want to add in? Nothing? Okay. Oh, yeah, Chris.
I just want to second a couple of things here that just sort of came down the pike that I think are really worth remembering. The portable charger that Bob mentioned, this would be incredibly useful to me. I'm going to order it as soon as we sign off here. I assume, Bob, you preload the juice in there like a Mophie juice pack or something, and it's available for your watch. Yeah, that's wonderful, because what I have in the car is my old watch charger that I used at work. And the cable is probably long enough to reach the third seat in my car, which doesn't actually even exist. But, and it's really cumbersome to use that. And the USB in my car is frankly not that good. So that looks really cool. And Peter's comment on the smart stacks, I got started on those about 5:15 tonight, and I almost missed the show because I was having so much fun playing with the smart stacks. So thank you for that, Peter, because I've seen the term, but I never actually went deep enough to figure out what it is. But yes, it's highly useful, and particularly with faces like you mentioned that don't have a lot of complications. So 2 excellent ideas there. Thanks, guys.
Marty, I did find, thanks, Chris, the find people, and that does on my watch, and that does everything that Find My does on the phone. And I'm also then too grateful to Peter for finding out about Smart Stack. So I think, from my perspective, I plan to use my watch a lot more than I've been using it. And Marty, I will start putting my phone in my pocket.
I was, as Chris was talking about it, I went to my watch, and this week I'm wearing the Pride band, as part of supporting that whole process and movement. However, I have one complaint: they have really nice watch faces, but they don't have enough data on it. So I wanted to use the Pride watch face, but all you do basically is get the time from it. So if they could build in more colorful modular stuff in the watch that I could get information and still have a Pride watch face, I'd be happy to comply and have it uniform. So yeah, Gary, I appreciate that. I went to as soon as Chris mentioned it, I went to my watch to look at that, and it's like, sure enough, you can find those things. That's pretty cool. So you were maybe you thought you were mistaken, but you were really prophetic when you said using Find My on my watch.
Well, as I said, I'm not really alone, but I find on my phone, the whole Find My app, very reassuring and an easy way to communicate with friends and family to know you're okay.
Hmm.
Including, and also though, you can send a small little emoji in the morning, say, "Hey, in touch base." So it's truly amazing what's available if we're back to seniors or seasoned or anybody that that Apple has put out there for us.
Has
And look, we'll come back. We'll probably come back to these same topics over and over again when they're relevant.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is WWDC's coming out. We might see a whole different wave of things that the watch or other devices can do. So it will be a reason to communicate again. Hey, I've got a question for the group before we sign off. Does anybody use the walkie-talkie? Talking about instantly communicating with loved ones or friends.
I have used it with my wife, and it's hilarious because it's got such latency to it that we end up shouting from one end of the house to the other of like how to work it properly as opposed to actually use the walkie-talkie. So
So there is
Mark,
a your
I
experience
thought
is
you
there's
were
a big
looking at
latency
it,
with it?
Marty, at one time.
Yeah, yeah. The problem was when it came out, it was like I need to find somebody who has a watch that will let me play with them, and had a current watch at the time, and it never took off. I don't know if it's still being used or utilized. I know it's still on the watch, but what do you think? It's like construction sites, or what do you think the purpose is at this point? Any ideas?
the when it was shown at the time it was released, it just showed people essentially having a conversation,
Yeah,
sort of like you would on a, I mean, to me, if you don't have a built-in cellular phone, you could use the walkie-talkie through Wi-Fi to have a type of telephone conversation, and it would probably work for that.
yeah. That's interesting. So let's talk about Macstock. Macstock 9 is coming for 3 days, July 11th, 12th, and 13th in 2025. It's going to be in north central Illinois, in Crystal Lake near Woodstock, Illinois, hence the name Macstock. And you've got opportunities to register for it. You have some great speakers coming. And I know Bob is going to be there and Gary's going to be there. I'll be speaking there with my son. Um, just some great opportunities in terms of what's happening with the different presentations. And you can go to the site and see all that. And of course, we would love to have you come and join us. It's 3 days of just really fun, enjoyable conversations with uh, people giving short presentations. And they're not going to be presentations that'll be too rough for you to follow. You'll get more curious than anything else. And if they present on an app that you don't have, you're probably going to wind up spending some money on apps while you're there just because you get fascinated by it. Um, and so I'd encourage you to look into that. It's at macstockconferenceandexpo.com. If you are going to come, you can always put in your registration the code PodTalk50 at checkout, and it'll save you $50 off your registration. If you can't make it, they're going to have virtual passes. So, like a month afterwards, Mike gets the video out and is available for people who have virtual passes so you can watch all of the presentations as they're being recorded or as they've been recorded and get some of the same learning and the connections and the resources that people who were there were getting too. So it gives you an opportunity to maybe put your feet in the water this year, and then next year you're going to want to be there. It's always a great time. I don't know, Bob. Do you have more or to say about that?
It's wonderful to be there and see all the presentations, but you can see all the presentations with a digital pass. But what you don't get with a digital pass is you don't get the one-on-one interaction with the presenters and the other attendees that is a whole nother dimension to Macstock. So do the digital pass if you need to, but come and join us if you can.
Yeah, and as Bob was saying, it's not a huge conference. It's 100 people maybe, and there's lunches. There's 3 lunches provided, and as a result, imagine yourself in a room with 100 people, 8 people to a table. Each lunch you can sit down with anybody you want to, and you've met a whole table full of people, very cordial and very great. So it's not like everybody's, people are off in the distance. They're right up there for you to kind of communicate with and have a good opportunity to meet them and ask them questions, and they can ask you questions too. So let's wrap up the episode. Our next live episode will be Wednesday, May 28th at 9 p.m. through YouTube, where you can watch this crew at youtube.com/@oldmacgang. You can always pick up the podcast or the video later. If you missed the show, please share this with your friends and your colleagues and your Mac user groups. That the podcast is here and it's there for them. We appreciate folks who have joined us in the chat room and place comments and write comments within the chat room. Our music bed is by Philip Gross, Marrakesh, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. More information about this podcast and others can be found at thepodtalk.net. And that's the website that contains this podcast for information and also other podcasts that I'm involved in. You can catch me on In Touch with iOS on Thursdays with David Ginsburg at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and also with Chuck Joyner on Mac Voices on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And occasionally you'll catch me on the British Techno Network, the Mac Show, on Friday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And I joined that group, and it's a lot of fun to be part of those, besides the ones that we're producing here. So thanks for the group. Everybody showing up tonight, Gary, Chris, Peter, and Bob. And thank you for being part of the Old Mac Gang. We'll see you next time.